All right, so we're going to continue right on here with more foundational stuff. In the previous video, we did cut and more, and a little bit of cat. You learned about grep a little bit. So we're going to continue that right on. And just a kind of a visual reminder here of where we are. We're still in very much just foundational skills, and we were inside Linux, and we had looked at cat more, um, grep, and a few other, introduced you to some of the concepts with those. But now we're going to spend this entire video using something called awk, which is right here. And that's what we're going to focus on. So let's dig right into it. All right, so again, we're going to be using the same data set that we were using before, which if you remember, it was just this example scan text here from this port scan. And we're going to use it in a slightly different way. This time we're going to be using awk to manipulate and view the data in here. Now, look at, there's a lot of ways to utilize these command line tools. And I'm just trying to show you a few basic ways to get you going so that when you jump into these courses or when you jump into these tasks, you have the foundational skills to figure out the best way to do it, because no one way is always going to work in any given situation. And part of what I'm trying to get you to understand and show you is master the pieces, like get the little pieces. And then once you have all the pieces mastered, you can come up with creative ways and figure out the best way to solve whatever the problem is. So let's dive right into it. The first thing I want to do is show you how to just view the file with awk. We learned how to use more to view it, like so. We also learned that we could view it with cat in the previous video here. Whoops. Like so. And we could also utilize less to view it. Like so. So any of these tools could be utilized to view it. And now we're going to learn how to use awk to view it, because awk gives us some features and some capabilities that we didn't have before. For example, we could literally just say awk print like so, and then just name the file, and it just prints it to the screen. But what I want you to get into the habit of doing, instead of just doing it like that, go ahead and add to the beginning, inside your first single tick there, those 2 slashes, because we're going to be incorporating and adding some other things in between those. So I want you to think of it as everything between these 2 forward slashes here are going to be where we do most of our manipulation, at least at a beginner level or basic level here. So if we do that, it essentially gives us the same result as just saying print. All right, but I want you to get into the habit of doing it that way, because we're going to slowly add stuff to this part right here. And let's look at our first example of what we're going to add there. So the first thing is, if we wanted to grep or look for a specific string, one way to do that is you could pipe it out to grep. And let's say if we wanted to look for link, all right, we could just grep for link, and we get all the results that show, anything that has that string in it. Another way we could do it is without piping it out to another tool like grep. We could also, inside these forward slashes here, put that string link, for example. And that tells awk to look for that string in this data and then print that. So if we enter that, we get the same result as piping it to grep and then having it go to the screen. So what we're getting at here is we can do that right within this one command without actually having to pipe it out to something else. Now, another thing I want to show you is how to use a wildcard. So for example, if we wanted to just say, let's get everything in this file that has a L followed by a N. All right. The in the middle letter, like, the Y here could be there. It could be any letter, but let's just see what we get when we do that. The way you do that, we're going to say the letter L and then use a dot as the wildcard and say N. So anything that any pattern that starts with the letter L, another letter in between, and then the N, that's going to show up in results here. All right. So we go ahead and do that. And as you can see, it looks pretty much just like what it did when we just grepped for the entire string of link. Now, what if we said begins with the letter L and ends with the letter C? Or, L something in the middle and then C. Will that give us the same result? It doesn't, because think about it. What we have here is there's more than one letter in between. So, you have to actually account for that. Now, what I don't want you to do is get too carried away. For example, if we do something like this, right, that actually takes us back. It gives us that, but it also gives us a few other things, because look at this. We said the letter L, okay, with two letters in between and then the letter C. So sure, link meets that criteria, but so does this right here, because we have the letter L right there, two letters, and then the letter C. So that met that criteria as well, right? So that's how you could utilize that. You could even go further with it, right? Like you could say the letter L, 1, 2, 3, 4, four other characters, and then the letter P, right? So if we did that, let's change that to P and add 2 more dots there. That's 4. You can see it expanded out to get more, but if you look at each line, you will find that there's an L, a certain number of characters, and then a P shows up, right? So that's where that actually comes from. And keep in mind, this could go in either direction. It could go forwards or backwards. All right, and that's what that's actually showing you there. So that is how we could utilize wildcards to actually look for things, using awk. Nothing but awk. We don't have to go out to another tool or anything like that. This is just within awk itself. So that's some of the cool things you can do with it. Now, later, we're also going to need to do things like, let's say if I gave you this data set and said, just print for me field 2 and field 3, IP and then the fully qualified domain name. Well, you can do that by simply saying, hey, awk, I want you to print for me, let's just say L and C, or L and N. So go back to all of our link stuff. All right, but then say, let's clean this up. I just want to see these 2 fields. Well, what we could do is inside our awk, and remember, we're staying inside these 2 quotes here, right? The quote at the beginning and the quote at the end. Inside my print, I could say, well, print just for me fields 2, comma, and then field 3. That would be this field and that field. So if we do that, that's what we get. We get a cleaner version of it to where we can just see those 2 specific fields. And another slick thing, you can also reverse the order without even going into sort and doing reverse order and sort. We could just within awk, we could say, well, let's make field 2 second and field 3 first. And then you'll see the IP and the fully qualified domain name reverse there, right? So that gives us another interesting way to look at and massage data. And there's a lot of reasons we might want to actually consider doing that. You might want to sort the data, for example, and use whatever field you want it to sort it. So we could pipe that to sort and say sort by number in this case, and it gives it to us that way. But we could reverse the field. Let's go back to 2 and 3 here. And you can see that it's kind of gives us a slightly different result there based on, it using this to specify the actual number. Now, there's some interesting things as far as how it interprets the numbers. We could dig into that, but I don't want to waste time on that just yet. So one interesting thing that often becomes a problem, and this is kind of important, and this will be the last thing I show, at least in this little series on it, is sometimes you have special characters that you want to be able to focus on. For example, let's look at if you notice, some of these have like the dollar sign in front of it. So if I wanted to just pull out of this the strings that have the dollar sign, let's see what happens if we just try to like grep it or something. So if we set more and then we grep for dollar sign, it basically ignores it. It's going to pull everything. If we, even in awk, let's go back all the way to our beginning awk commands here. If we told awk to look for the string dollar sign and print that, it ignores it. So how do we print just the ones with the dollar sign without having awk interpret that as a special operator or something like that? Well, we have to do what's called escaping it. So what you want to do there is, in front of that special character, if we do an escape string, like if we did a backslash like so, notice now it just prints the strings that have that dollar sign in front of it there. Okay, so that is how you would do that. And you're going to run into several situations where there's data or there's strings in the data that you want to grep or you want to filter based on, but you can't do that without escaping those, because whatever tool you're using, whether it be grep, awk, more, whatever, is going to interpret that special character in a certain way, which means you have to do something like this to escape it. And we were just looking at how to do that in awk. So remember these things, practice it, utilize it, get very good with it, because again, as you jump into courses, these things are going to be expected of you. You're going to need to know these things coming into it. And this is not just for pen testing or ethical hacking or threat hunting. Even when you're getting things like SIM logs, when you go to your SIM team, you get a bunch of logs and you're trying to parse through that stuff. These skills are going to be absolutely invaluable to you. So I hope you enjoyed this session. Please comment, share this video, and put some stuff in the comments for me. Thanks a lot.